Yo, what is up, guys? It's Game Day Experience here. On this channel, we like to experience tons of trips and experience so you guys can plan the best vacations possible. But let's get into the Universal Vacation Package.
The total that I paid for the vacation package was $1,087.17. This included a 2-night stay at Cabana Bay. We also upgraded to the Volcano View. It also included a split day pass for 2 people for both Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios. And finally, 2 full day park passes to the brand new Epic Universe. Be careful when booking though, because while editing, I did the math and it's actually cheaper to buy them one by one instead of the package. We will be ranking the experience out of 100 so we can know what's truly the best experience out there. I did split this ranking into 4 equal parts, those being food, Islands of Adventure, Cabana Bay, and Epic Universe. But let's jump right into this. Starting off with the food, because you guys know I'm a big bag. And honestly, the whole trip, I didn't really get anything that was terrible. But starting off with the worst thing I did eat while I was at Universal comes in at Epic Universe at Toadstool Cafe. And that was the 1-pound Bowser Meatball Challenge. And honestly, Toadstool in general just didn't really have great food. The atmosphere was amazing, but the food really wasn't that good. Staying right in Epic Universe, going over to the How to Train Your Dragon section, they have these mac and cheese cones. The Dragonfire Chicken Spire is the greatest one. That one was so good. If you're looking for more of a sit-down spot though, Chocolate Factory in City Walk is great. It's right before you get into Islands of Adventure and Universal. It's got some really good desserts, probably the best desserts around, and the food is also really good as well. And what comes in at top as the best food I had on my vacation was definitely in the Galaxy Bowling in Cabana Bay. They had like this platter with a bunch of different items. It was amazing. 10 out of 10 there. I like simple stuff, so for me it was the best. And then the best dessert is definitely the butterbeer. You can get these at Epic Universe and at Islands of Adventure. I think at Universal as well. So all those 3 places, and they're so good. Definitely gotta try the butterbeers. The frozen one though. Honestly, Universal shocked me with how good the food actually was. I know theme parks have a stigma of not having really great food, but Universal really stepped up their game and they have some great food options. So altogether, this gets a 20 out of 25 in our ranking towards Universal Experience. Now moving on to our second category, this is going to be Islands of Adventure. The only reason I didn't include Universal Studios in this part of the ranking is because unfortunately in the second half of the day, we did get rained out. So unfortunately, we didn't get to experience as many things as I maybe wanted to, but we did get to experience the main things we were hoping to get to do. Those rides being Hulk, Kong, and then finally, Velocicoaster. When we got in the park, we walked straight over to Hulk because it was only like a 20-minute wait. There is a nice view when you get down a couple stairs of the lake, and it shows like, you can see like Velocicoaster, you can see a couple things in the background. So that's a really cool viewpoint. But moving over to like the Marvel Land, and it's crazy because Disney doesn't even have a Marvel Land and they literally own Marvel. But anyways, walking up to Hulk, I haven't been on this ride in maybe 5-10 years, so I was super excited. The queue was pretty cool, nothing like absolutely special compared to some of the other queues in Universal. But then the ride itself, that initial burst off of Hulk is crazy. That'll never get old. No matter how old I get, that initial burst off will always get you. It's a crazy ride, very shaky, very rough, but I feel like it adds to kind of the aesthetic of Hulk. And honestly, I think the restraints have a lot to do with it. Newer coasters like Velocicoaster have just the lap bar kind of restraint, and maybe like a coaster like Mako at SeaWorld. But Hulk with the over the head, like I just feel like you bang your head so much on those restraints. I feel like also another big issue with Hulk, and I don't know if I'm alone on this one, is that the first half of the ride is probably one of the better coasters in Florida, and the second half of the ride kind of falls off a little bit. But altogether, re-riding this coaster was so nostalgic for me, and it's gotta be a must experience if you do go to Universal Islands of Adventures. Walking past Marvel Land now, we did walk past Toon Lagoon. It did look really well themed and everything. We didn't sadly get to experience it because I was really hyped to ride another ride that we'll get to later. But overall, there's so much more to experience in Islands of Adventure that I didn't get to this time. If you guys want another video on Islands of Adventure and especially Universal Studios, let me know in the comments below. We finally got past Toon Lagoon, and at this point, it did start to sprinkle a little bit, so we're kind of sprinting. And we did finally get to Kong, and Kong is very well themed, and it was a really low wait, so we did decide to ride this one. And honestly, Kong is very well themed through the queue, through when you get on the bus, through the first layer, and then it's just kind of a screen ride. So it wasn't really anything too crazy for me. I don't think this is like a must experience or anything. But the one crazy part about this ride is at the very end, you do get this giant, I don't know how big it is, but it is massive, of a Kong animatronic. And it's literally probably the craziest part of the ride. But there's like a whole middle part where really I don't care for with the screens and stuff. But overall, this is something that you can experience if you do have extra time, but I don't think this is a must experience by any means. After Kong, my big back urges were kicking in, and we definitely had to stop for some food. So we stopped right in between Kong and Jurassic Park. It's like Thunder Falls Terrace or something like that. Dude, the food here is crazy. I know I just talked about food in my last section, so I won't get too deep into this, but this is a really good sit down spot. I mean, it's not super expensive, but for theme park food, it's pretty expensive. But this food is really good, so I'd recommend stopping there, but I won't get too far into it because we just had a whole thing about food. After my big back urges were satisfied, we finally moved over to the main event and what I was waiting for this whole day, and that was Velocicoaster. My hype was honestly like at a 10 out of 10 for this ride. I had seen so many videos, so many content creators I know saying that this ride was crazy. So I was actually afraid to get my hopes let down. But walking through the queue is all right. It's not anything crazy. There is some sick parts in the queue. Like you do get to see Blue, the Velociraptor. I think it's Blue or just one of the Velociraptors. And then you finally get to the boarding and I was so hyped. You get to like a launch at the start and the first part is crazy. You're zooming around and you see like Velociraptors. It's just a nice little area out back. And then you take another jet. And when I'm telling you, you feel like you're just levitating in the air. How fast you go up and then you just go straight down. That's easily the best drop in Florida. And then it goes into like twists and turns. And then there's a part at the end where you do a full 360, like twice over the water. And that was like, honestly, one of the craziest experiences I've had. You feel like you're falling out of the vehicle because it's just the lap bar restraint. It was just honestly unbelievable. Definitely a 10 out of 10 ride. The best ride in Florida. You have to go on it. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. And honestly, thank God we went when we did, because right after we got on, the rain delay started coming in. So every ride around Universal and Islands of Adventure were both on rain delay. So it was like the whole park shut down, which is definitely something that you got to consider when you're going to Islands of Adventure or Universal, is that if it rains, pretty much the entire park is shut down. Like you can ride like Spider-Man, like some of the theater rides, maybe like Transformers, but none of the other rides are open. So this did suck pretty bad for us in our stay because I did want to ride the Jurassic Park water ride. I feel like something happens every time I try to ride that ride. And then I did want to ride Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure, but sadly this was still on rain delay. We even waited in the line for like maybe even close to an hour waiting to see if like we could be one of the first ones to ride it after the rain delay. And it just wasn't coming. Like the rides were just shut down for over an hour. So we decided to just get on the train to Park Hop. It's like a Harry Potter train. It was pretty cool. Took us right over to Universal Studios. And then we started just running for our lives because it did start raining on us. So we just had to get out of there. So that was my day at Islands of Adventure. We did walk through Universal Studios, but not enough to actually rank it in this part of the video. Going into this ranking of Islands of Adventure, I am pretty torn because on one hand, this was one of the most fun I've had at that theme park in a really long time, actually. But on the other hand, it got cut way short because unlike Disney, who has a way to cover all their roller coasters so they can run even when it's raining, Islands of Adventure really doesn't. And I feel like in Florida, that's a really big issue because it rains a lot over here. So going into that and thinking about all I did that day, I do have to give Islands of Adventure a 20 out of 25 as well, because I did have a really great day, but I did have to dock some points for obviously not being able to do the rest because of the rain. Since we're halfway through now, I did want to give an updated scorecard. So right now with the food and Islands of Adventure, we're sitting at a 40 out of 50. Let's see if Cabana Bay and Epic Universe can make this go up or down. Let's get into Cabana Bay. The first thing I want to say about Cabana Bay is it's not an ultra luxury hotel, but it's also not a budget hotel. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. So I'm going to be ranking it accordingly. I'm obviously not going to be ranking it as if it was a super 5-star hotel, and I'm not going to be ranking it like it's a budget hotel. So somewhere in between is where we're going to find our ranking. The first thing I wanted to say, and one of the best things about this hotel, is the bus system. So the bus system allows you to go to City Walk and Epic Universe for completely free, included with your stay. So you can go as many times as you like or as little. So I used it to go to Islands of Adventure, Universal Studios, and then I also went back to go to Chocolate Factory. And then we also went to Epic Universe. The good part about Epic Universe is they bring you right to the front. So you don't have to walk in that long line, and you also avoid all parking fees. So this is a great way to really capitalize on your vacation, save a little bit of money, and just honestly take advantage of this great perk. Although you don't have to pay for parking at any of the theme parks, you do have to pay parking for the hotel itself. It is $26 a night. So depending on how long your stay, definitely make sure to think about that or budget that into your stay as well. But moving on to the check-in of the resort itself, it was pretty smooth, nothing super spectacular, like no crazy online portal to check in really quick. There was an online check-in, but for me it was really buggy, so I just ended up walking through the normal line. Everyone that I worked with seemed very helpful, seemed very knowledgeable. They'll tell you a lot of information about the parks themselves. Now moving on to the room itself. And to be honest with you guys, I was actually pretty underwhelmed by the room. There was nothing really fancy about it. It is older themed, but it doesn't really look older themed in a nice way. It just looks older themed in kind of a cheaper way. But not to say the room was terrible by any means, because it wasn't. It did just feel a little bit, it wasn't my style, I guess. The view we did have of Volcano Bay was absolutely amazing though. That is something I recommend upgrading to if you guys can fit that in your budget. That's a great view from the hotel. As for some of the amenities that this hotel has, it does have a bowling arena, it does have an arcade, it has a fitness gym, it has a Starbucks, it does have 2 big pools, and I will get into each of these topics as we go on. First, I do want to get into the 2 pools because that's pretty much the main draw to the hotel. One of the pools does have a lazy river. That's the one that we stay closest to, so that's the one I ended up visiting the most. It has a great view of Volcano Bay. The lazy river is pretty nice. The pool is pretty nice. There's some good food around there. It's a good atmosphere. On the other side, they have a water slide. It's a pretty nice pool as well. It does have a restaurant. So everything feels very connected to that central hub. And honestly, if you were telling me to pick between the pools, I would pick the pool with the lazy river. I just think that's overall a better pool. It does have the better restaurant right by it. There is a lot more space in this one as well. So honestly, that just feels like my opinion. But honestly, you couldn't go wrong with either of them. Now moving on to the other amenities. The gym I didn't get to experience while I was there. Also, the Starbucks is just a normal Starbucks. So it is pretty themed, but there's nothing really too special about the Starbucks itself. And then we did have a night where we experienced the bowling, and then we went right over to the arcade because they're connected. The bowling was pretty fun. It does remind me of Splitsville in Orlando if you've ever been there. Definitely older themed. It's not super massive, but definitely not a lot of crowds in there just because it's just a hotel bowling alley. But I had a great time in there. The food is amazing. I know I talked about it in my previous segment, but that food was really good in the bowling alley. We had a great time. There's a bunch of different games you can play. It's not just normal bowling. So I had a great time. I would really recommend Galaxy Bowl. The arcade does seem a little bit less of a thing to do. There are some cool games in there, but unfortunately it is pretty pricey in the arcade itself. And there's not really any good prizes or anything to win. So I would say if you had time, experience the arcade, but it's definitely not a must experience or anything. Now I know I referenced that central hub earlier when I was talking about the 2 pools, but this central hub is very themed. And it does give me a lot more of those old vibes than the room did. I really love the way the cafeteria looks. And that cafeteria has some really good food as well. There's 4 options in there, and they do serve breakfast and lunch and dinner. And they're open, I think, till 11. So there was a couple times we did go night swimming, and we stopped by, and we got a bite to eat. Really not expensive as well. And it was really good food. So I really did enjoy that part of my vacation as well. Also, sitting in that themed environment, it did feel a lot like a cafeteria, like your school lunchroom. But there's even ice cream there. There's just a lot of good things about that cafeteria and that middle area that I really like about this hotel. So overall, my thoughts on Cabana Bay, And honestly, this is one of my favorite hotels. Yeah, the room wasn't super luxury and you do have to pay for parking, but there's just so many amenities that come with this hotel, like the bus system. There's a lot of stuff to do in the hotel itself. So if you wanted to make a vacation where you didn't even go to any of the Universal parks, you could do that. You could stay in the hotel and have a good 3 days where you just don't even leave the hotel. I feel like this hotel is definitely one of the better ones I've stayed at in Orlando itself. And I would give this hotel a ranking of 22 out of 25. That's really high and actually our highest of the list so far. But that's how much I really like this hotel. And I really recommend you guys stay there in your upcoming trips to Orlando. Now, after Cabana Bay, we're moving on to the grand finale. The thing I've been so excited for, the reason I booked this vacation in the first place, and that's Epic Universe. And if you didn't know, Epic Universe is Universal's brand new theme park. They just opened this year. So I was so excited to go and experience all these rides for the first time. And when we went in, we weren't sure what to do first. We did have some guidance from the guy at Cabana Bay at the vacation desk. He did tell us not to do Mario Land right away and not to do Harry Potter because those are where the crowds kind of form at. So we ended up going to Stardust Racers, which I was really excited for. I heard some big hype about this. A lot of people said that this roller coaster was better than Velocicoaster, which if you know from this video, I'm a big Velocicoaster guy, so I was really excited to experience it. But we were waiting in the line for Stardust Racers. It did say about 60 minutes. It did feel like a true 60. We got up to the front and the ride shut down. This is something very common with Epic Universe rides at the moment. They do shut down a lot. They're brand new. They're not really used to the capacity that Epic Universe is offering. So these rides do shut down. And we had an hour shutdown at Stardust Racers. And we ended up waiting. And we were pretty upset. So they did let us actually ride the other side. So I did get to actually experience the yellow and green side. So that was pretty sick. But in my opinion, how I feel about the ride, there's no way that this ride is better than Velocicoaster to me. The dueling element is one of a kind. Don't get me wrong. There's some moments where I was looking and you're just like, wow, how is that even possible? But the ride more is about a 9 out of 10 for me. Still good for one of probably the better coasters in Florida. Still would recommend riding it. It's just not as good as Velocicoaster. And it's not probably the best coaster in Florida, as a lot of people have said. This could also have an effect on me waiting really long to ride the ride and me having a bad experience getting stopped right at the entrance to ride it. So I don't know. You guys definitely have to experience this for yourself. But in my opinion, wasn't better than Velocicoaster. After this, we were pretty hungry. And the waits at this point are pretty much hour and a half on every single ride. Not even like no ride was under an hour wait. So we did stop at How to Train Your Dragon Land. We did grab the mac and cheese cones. I did talk about those a little bit earlier in the video, so I won't get too far into this. Definitely something you have to eat if you are going to Epic Universe. Probably the best thing I had in Epic Universe as far as eating goes. But after that, we did make our way over to Harry Potter Land. I think this one's actually more themed to Fantastic Beasts. Y'all will have to let me know down in the comments below. But this is a very immersive land, and it really feels like you're dropped right into 1910s, 1920s Paris. We went over to this land to really ride Ministry of Magic. At this point, it was about a 2-hour wait, which was the lowest we've seen all day. So before we got on the ride, though, I did have to get my big bag of butterbeer. The queue to this ride was honestly one of the best, if not the best queues I've ever been in any theme park ride ever. The queue does feel like it lasts forever, though. Every time you think you're about to get on, you don't. And it's just more and more doors and pathways and more things to see. I'm not the biggest Harry Potter or Fantastic Beasts fan, but I know if you are, you will get a ton of value out of this attraction. This ride is definitely one of a kind, and the hype is definitely worth it with this ride. If you like dark rides, this is probably the best dark ride probably anywhere in the world. It's just got so many high quality animatronics. The screens don't even look like screens. It just all blurs together and you don't know what's real or fake. And it's just honestly one of the best rides. It has great animatronics. You feel attached to the story, and I don't even like Harry Potter. So I know if you guys do like Harry Potter or Fantastic Beasts, you guys will really love this attraction. But this is definitely a must experience if you go to Epic Universe. After Harry Potter, we had waited 2 hours for both rides by now. So at this point, it was already later in the day. We jetted straight over to Mario Land because we wanted to make sure we got to do all the rides we wanted to do in Mario Land. And honestly, I'm a super big Mario guy, so I was really excited. We had our Toad hats. We had our wristbands. We were really excited. This was kind of like the grand finale of Epic Universe for us. And walking up to Mario Land, you do go through like an escalator that does look like the Mario pipes. You go up to Peach Castle, and all of it, this is the most themed land I've been in ever. There's not a place that you're going to look in this land that doesn't have something going on related to Mario. This was breathtaking. This was honestly the coolest thing I've ever done in a theme park. This literally felt like Mario brought to life. The only thing I do have to say about Mario Land is it's so hot, and that goes for all of Epic Universe, but Mario Land, there really is no shade, so it is very hot in Mario Land. In this land, we did spend the most time. We did eat at Toadstool Cafe. I talked about that a little bit earlier. As for the theming of Toadstool, it was great. Honestly, I felt like I was just dropped into a little Toad hut. It was crazy. After we ate, we decided to go check out the Donkey Kong land. This land was so sick. It was so themed to Donkey Kong. It literally felt like my childhood was brought to life. We did want to ride Minecart Madness because that's actually the only thing that's in this whole land. You would think there's more to do, but that's actually really the only thing. So getting into line, it was about a 90-minute wait. So just to give you an idea, 2 hours, 90 minutes. These are long wait times. So Epic Universe is really low capacity. So if you're going to Epic Universe in the first year, you are going to wait. Just keep that in mind. Walking through Minecart Madness, the first portion of the line is outside, so you are burning. I mean, like literally burning alive. There's no shade at all. There's like little fans that like barely hit you a breeze. Walking into the queue, it is pretty themed. Not anything crazy compared to a lot of the other rides they have here, but definitely a pretty cool theme. There is an animatronic. I think it's Cranky Kong. I'm not too sure, but walking past, you do finally get to the ride portion. Now, talking about this ride, I did wait 90 minutes for this ride. It was 100% not worth 90-minute wait. And honestly, I don't even think it's worth a 30-minute wait. This roller coaster really isn't like a big e-ticket attraction. It reminds me more of like a softer, more of a kid's ride, to be honest. And there really wasn't anything too fast about the roller coaster. You did go through some cool scenes, but there was no really thrill moments or anything that really got me excited for this coaster. The part that's supposed to be different or really cool about this coaster is it's not on the track. You're actually getting held by a mechanical arm that's kind of riding the track for you. And that makes the ride really bumpy, like extremely bumpy. This ride isn't all bad though. There are some cool parts about the jumping the track that make you like, I've never seen that before. So that was pretty cool for me. There was a cool scene towards the end with Donkey Kong. But overall, this ride definitely isn't a must experience, especially at the high wait times. If it's more like 20 minutes or 10 minutes, I would definitely swing on this ride. It's a cool ride, but definitely not worth the wait. After Donkey Kong, we did have the Mario wristbands. So what that means is that we could play additional mini games that you couldn't if you didn't purchase the wristbands. These wristbands are $40 each. At this point in our day, it was getting very late and we wanted to experience one last ride. And that was Mario Kart. The Mario Kart queue, honestly, was such a banger. This queue is so cool. It feels like you're dropped right in Mario Kart. This did bring out my childhood as well. This queue isn't necessarily better than Harry Potter, but for me, it hit different because I played Mario a lot and I'm not the biggest Harry Potter or Fantastic Beasts fan. But moving on to the ride itself, this is definitely a one-of-a-kind ride. Do I think it's necessarily the perfect ride? No, I don't, but this is definitely something you must experience. You are the driver of a car in this game, and you have a headset on, almost like a VR headset, where you see the action while you're driving. And there's cool scenes in the background in real life, but in the screen, you were racing against Bowser Jr., you're racing against other players, you're trying to get the most points. Almost like a Buzz game, but with VR, a way newer, more modern version of that. And honestly, this was one of my favorite parts of the whole vacation. It felt like racing back in Mario Kart Wii that I used to play. It was so sick. I love the shooter games, like the element of competitiveness. So this was honestly altogether one of my favorite rides I've ever rode. Just because it brought back that Mario Kart Wii that I used to play all the time as a kid. Definitely a nostalgia thing. I'm really big on Mario. Maybe you guys aren't, so it might not hit the same for you guys. But this was definitely one of the most fun rides I rode at Epic Universe. Definitely a must experience. After this, we were very burnt out of waiting in lines. I did want to experience some of the rides in How to Train Your Dragon and Monsters Unchained Land, but I just didn't get the time to this day. But overall, looking back at Epic Universe, I had a lot of fun, honestly. And this was really the most fun I've had at a theme park in a while. but there are some key negatives that I do have to address. One, the lack of shade. In the Florida heat, you are going to be burning here. Two, it's the low capacity of the rides. You cannot ride a ride there right now that's less than a 60-minute wait. And that's not just the time I went, it's been all the time after the opening. But you gotta go into it knowing there's gonna be a long wait because it is a brand new theme park, so I went into it knowing that the waits were gonna be long. And overall, I feel like this is something you guys have to do if you're going to Orlando. I'm gonna give this a 23 out of 25. This was definitely the coolest thing I got to do while I was on vacation. And this is something I definitely recommend you guys do if you're going to Orlando. So overall, looking back at my Universal experience, these are the rankings we ended up with. That ends up being an 85 out of 100. But overall, guys, what do you think? What do you think about the video? Would you guys like to stay in Universal? Overall, in my opinion, it was definitely worth the price. No questions asked. I think you guys should definitely book it. Let me know in the comments below if you want to see more vacations. I do have some planned up. I have a couple cool videos in the tank. So if you guys want to see those, keep liking, keep commenting, subscribe to the channel. God bless, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.